We left Béziers with 2 bags and 3 nearby cities on our list: Carcassonne, Perpignan, and Narbonne.
We tracked every train, every hotel point, every meal and coffee shop to find out which city is worth your time, your money, or your effort.
Carcassonne hit first, with towers and crowds and massive medieval city we had seen in photos before we arrived. Perpignan gave us Catalan streets, busy plazas, rougher edges, and a city that felt unpredictable. And Narbonne came last, close to our home base, easy to reach and simple to walk, with a quiet canal and an incredible indoor market.
By the end, if you only had time to visit one of these, this is the city that we would recommend first.
We wanted to test which version was actually worth your effort. Carcassonne is the one everyone mentions and already knows. It's on the travel list before you even start planning your trip to France because it's so beautiful. For us, the question was never whether we were going to go, it was whether the reality actually matched this massive reputation that it had. Perpignan sits close enough to the Spanish border that it doesn't feel entirely French, and that's just interesting enough on its own. There's Catalan flags, and the street signs are bilingual, and the energy, it has its own distinct identity, and we truly did not know enough about it going in to predict what we would find. Then there's Narbonne, the practical choice. I kept looking it up, and that's what I was being told. It requires no overnight stay, and we wanted to know whether a city that simple to visit could still feel like a true destination rather than just a quick lunch stop, which is what was suggested over and over again.
Altogether, this entire loop cost us about $403 out of pocket for 2 people, which climbs close to the $672 if you count the hotel cash value instead of the points.
Which we do.
That covers the train rides, the 2 overnight stays, every single meal, every coffee, and even
some logistics that we had.
Our journey started out in Béziers, right at the train station.
We purchased our main tickets in advance, and that included our train ride to Carcassonne. We paid $44.80 for the both of us. We got there, it was quiet. The train got in, and just having the 2 small bags, our backpacks, meant we didn't have to carry our carry-on, roll them in or anything like that. It was just much easier.
Yeah, we totally found 2 perfect, comfortable seats by the window, and we watched all the southern France countryside roll right by all the way to Carcassonne.
And when we arrived at the Carcassonne station, the first thing was that the famous medieval city isn't right there. So you're not going to see that big...
They do kind of have this old town kind of feel right out at the train station.
They do.
But then there's a medieval walled city much further away that we'll get to in a second.
It's still modern. It's a little modern. You're not feeling that. But to get to the castle, you have to cross the river and walk up a fairly steady incline. It wasn't too bad. And it was a good 20 to 25 minute walk from the train.
And you're absolutely blown away by the towers just walking towards this place.
Yeah, but you have to keep that in mind that you have to walk uphill with your bags. So if you're going to carry a lot of bags, you can't just get to the castle straight up.
So we loved having just our backpacks this day.
So once you get to the top, the medieval walls, it's amazing. Just right then and there, you're like in awe. We went to walk over a bridge to take a photo, not realizing that if we just looked over to the left, that's where it was. And we were pretty surprised. The old city is really dramatic, photogenic. We took a lot of pictures on the walk. Right. We were already thrilled.
It's a little touristic. It's jam-packed with souvenir shops and kids running around with toy swords and stuff like that.
While you stand at the base of the double stone walls and you look up at the watchtower, it really does take your breath away. It looks like history book in your face, just coming to life.
It's really still cool. It's a gorgeous old medieval walled city with a lot of cobblestones and stone buildings.
And it's beautiful, but it is touristic. Everywhere to eat, everything to do in there, it's very touristic. And we went in a little later in the day, so it was quieter. So there was a little bit of peace to it and tranquility, which I thought added to the experience.
Either, it felt very polished or it felt a little bit more designed for tourists.
But it is suggested, and we did, stay overnight instead of just doing a rush day trip because you want to be able to see what it looks like at night with the lights on. And so we stayed at the Mercure La Cite, which was just down the street from the castle. which we didn't even realize when we booked it. We were using points. If we were paying cash, the room would have been $163.19. But we used credit card points instead, which kept our actual out-of-pocket costs really low.
Yay.
The hotel was decent.
Yeah, it was really comfortable.
So once the sun started to go down and all the tour buses were gone, the day trippers went back to the train station and everything emptied out pretty quickly.
I think after our dinner, that's when the magic kind of happens with this place, because it really does empty right out, right? And then all those lights come onto the walls, and that's when you're just blown away again.
Yeah, so if you're only going to visit Carcassonne for a few hours during the day, you're going to miss the best part of the town. And for dinner, we knew we had to try the local speciality. So we went to a place called La Maison du Cassoulet, which is a cozy, it was small, a traditional spot right inside the walls. And we weren't even sure we didn't have a reservation, but turns out everybody was waiting for them to open because they weren't open yet because it wasn't 7.
Right. So like the whole place is almost all shut down, but like, you know, this restaurant's going to open up and you're like, oh my gosh, are they going to take reservations or not?
And we just piled in with everybody else and they just immediately sat us all. It was interesting the way that was handled.
And we're reading the menu outside. Now, of course, I've kind of like told myself I'm going to do this local specialty dish, and it's going to be white beans, duck confit, and sausages. It sounds like a really good hearty meal, and it is.
And that was the classic, because there were different variations on this menu, but this was the classic cassoulet. And it looked good.
And it was good. And the bill came to $95.86 for the two of us. A little touristic-y on the prices, but when you add it up, the train ride, the overnight stay in the hotel, the medieval city.
That we sat down and had a cassoulet dinner.
That's right.
When the time we spent inside the walls. Carcassonne became the stop that felt, for me, the most classic of a paid travel experience.
I think it was the most famous place on our route out of the 3 places.
Carcassonne gave the biggest first impression, and it also set a really high visual bar. But now we had to see if Perpignan and or Narbonne could beat it for value and experience.
To get down to Perpignan, we had to hop right back on one of the regional trains. The ticket from Carcassonne was $57.06 for the two of us.
And we had purchased that one in advance as well.
A totally straightforward, quiet ride that took just over an hour.
I was realizing we're getting closer to Spain and it's going to be a little different, I imagine. And it was. When we walked out of the station in Perpignan, you noticed that shift in the atmosphere pretty quickly.
The whole entire thing has this Spanish flair to it, being so close to the Spain border. I mean, immediately you see palm trees right down this one giant street.
The Catalan influence was apparent. It gave the city, I don't know, it was like a different color. The architecture was different. I remember the tiles on the floor, the food that was being sold everywhere, just the feel as we were walking everywhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it postcard perfect,
no.
But you would definitely felt like it was like a lived in, less stage place like Carcassonne.
I remember walking by the police station on the main drag, and it just reminded me of South Beach, Miami. The way the building was curved on the corner, it was interesting. It was interesting to say the least. Even the street signs are both in French and Catalan. It felt pretty, I don't know, it was much more lived in than Carcassonne, and I was appreciating that.
As we were walking towards the center a little bit more, it was one of those real working cities with its own unique identity, with all these buses and people bustling around.
Yeah, it felt a little gritty, but not in a bad way.
Yeah. At first glance, you're expecting kind of like a sleepy, traditional French village, but what we got was a little bit of a harder read of a city.
I liked that for some reason. It didn't feel like it was putting a show on for us. I guess maybe because we just left Carcassonne, that we sort of had that
wow factor, everything's so photogenic.
Now we're here, now we're living with the real folk.
Right, but
back
I mean,
down to earth.
This had like its own kind of Salvador Dali flair to it, which I really liked.
There weren't a bunch of souvenir shops or anything like that going on. It was really just, we're back to a taste of the true multicultural border city town that it was. It felt pretty authentic.
Right.
And unpredictable, because I still feel like there's so much more for us to see.
We didn't see all of it. Where we stayed here, we used our credit card points again, and the cash value for our room would have been $117.27. But by leveraging our Chase points again, we kept our actual cash down to nothing, which is awesome.
The hotel that we stayed at was pretty well located. It was like in between the train station and everything else, so that worked for us. And because of the Spanish influence, the city really comes alive later at night, so it was a lot easy to go out during the day, go back to the hotel, and go back out at night, no problem. Went to a place called La Napoli, and it was pretty empty when we first arrived, which is nice, because you always worry that, they always ask, do you have a reservation? And you think, oh no, I don't. But it filled up after we had our table, so that worked in our favor.
Got a great booth over by the bar, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it was really delicious. So I'm glad that we were able to find somewhere to eat. We had a really wonderful meal there, and the bill, all of it, came to $51.91. And it was such great service. We didn't speak English, obviously. We didn't speak French very well, and the server didn't speak English very well. And I think that we were both all trying so hard.
We compensated great with each other.
Yeah, so we left a great tip. Perpignan surprised us also because it wasn't like Carcassonne. And maybe it's because we just left Carcassonne, so now we have that in our minds. But it just wasn't, it didn't hit the wallet the same way, that's for one. But it also had a more lived-in feel again. It wasn't, there wasn't some famous monument to go see.
Right.
It was just B.
And it had a beautiful Salvador Dali kind of feel to it that I really liked.
But it was the city that gave us the most unexpected experience. It was pretty rewarding, and it instantly put pressure on that Carcassonne visit, I have to say. I was impressed. I was surprisingly impressed with Perpignan. We had experienced the grand history of Carcassonne and the vibrant borderland energy of Perpignan, and now it was time for our third stop, and we're going to turn around and head back towards Béziers with a stop in Narbonne to see if a stop made just for convenience could even compete with the highlights of Carcassonne and Perpignan.
To get to our final stop, we took the train north from Perpignan to Narbonne. And the ticket cost the both of us only $38.69.
We had purchased that ticket in advance as well.
And it's a super easy ride right up the coast through all these beautiful lagoons that I guess you're able to see flamingos on some days. But
I didn't see any.
There weren't any up there.
When you get off the train in Narbonne, the first thing I think that was noticeable was that everything was flat. It seemed like, all right, this is easy. This
totally
should be simple.
unlike Carcassonne.
Yeah, unlike Carcassonne, we had to go up the big hill to see anything. Narbonne is flat. The historic center, like right when you leave the train station, you're there. It's not like you have to walk a long way.
Right, it's like you enter into Old Town as soon as you get off of the train.
It's a pretty compact town, which makes it perfect for low stress, which is what everything I read and before we were going out there and I was trying to understand kept telling us, that you don't really need a full day, you don't need an overnight, you won't exhaust yourself enjoying Narbonne, and it's true, we really didn't. So
I would say their bus system seemed to be dramatically intact right at the La Halles and the riverbank. Plenty of buses, really easy to get around, very walkable if you didn't want to take a bus.
Since we weren't staying overnight, though, we had our backpacks with us and we wanted to get rid of those so that it would be easier to walk around town. And so we used the app on our phone for Bounce. And it turns out that the Bounce drop-off was a tabac that was a stone's throw from the train station. It couldn't have been more convenient. So we used the app and we arrived, and it was quick. It was
painless. I don't think it took us more than 2 minutes to drop the bags off and get back out there with just our camera in hand.
I would say they held our bags for about 9 hours, and it cost $16.25. Not bad at all. We went straight towards Le Hall de Narbonne because we knew it was going to close. That's the first thing I told Scott is they're going to close first. Let's go see what that's about before they close on us. And we went straight there.
And it's really cool. It's kind of really old and neat, made out of like iron or like steel or something. And it's, 100 years old or something?
Oh, it has history. And it's not modernized in any which way. Nothing like in Béziers. It's still its old feel, and it just felt like it was the community owned the place.
Right, and it was happening once we went in. It was a crowded, almost intimidating kind of place. You could tell that there was a lot of locals and obviously tourists like just filling in every single seat.
Yeah, and after we went through the market, we decided to take a stroll. We went through these arches that were supposed to take you into like center of Old Town, but there was nothing happening in there. It was weird. Everything was closed, and it wasn't late. It was just there were a lot of shops that were closed. So we sort of ventured through there and back towards the canals.
Right, and when you walk through the canals, which is another beautiful walkway where you can just sit out and have your cafe and stuff like that. We reached the cathedral, and as the day was kind of winding down, we just watched like the light going through all of the stained glass windows.
It was beautiful.
Before heading back to the
they were
train
playing
station.
the organ. We're not sure if someone was actually playing the organ at the time or if it's a loop that they have running, but it was nice to be in there with that music in the background.
It gives a really nice ambiance in there by just having that organ play. So as we made our way back to the train station, we picked up our bags. Super simple.
Narbonne certainly doesn't have the Carcassonne dramatic medieval towers, and it's not really multicultural or intense like Perpignan was. For us, it was a little less hectic and much more like a place you could see yourself having a high quality daily life. And it's just 15 minutes from Béziers. We saw people having cocktails, a lot of people having dinner at different restaurants as we walked through the canal area.
We went to a Monoprix, which had great selection just in the middle of the town.
Right. So Narbonne was easily the cheapest and most effortless piece of our entire 3-city loop. And it didn't take a lot of planning, which is helpful because we could just get on a train and get over there in 15 minutes and enjoy Narbonne from Béziers. But I'd say the numbers only tell half the story. The real value of how that money translates into the actual experiences that we had. By the time we got back to Béziers, we realized that each of these 3 cities, it gives a different answer to the different preferences and the different way that people want to travel.
Yeah, and Carcassonne is one we can entirely understand why people want to go see first. If you've ever dreamed of seeing those massive, perfectly preserved medieval towers
and walking through them,
then this absolutely delivers that immediate visual wow factor.
But you have to think about the premium. It comes with big crowds and higher prices because it is touristic.
Yeah, it is centered completely around tourism.
But it was a bucket list, as it is for most, and we just checked that one off our list.
I wouldn't call it like one of those French authentic towns, though.
No. But it is worth a visit.
Classic, though.
Narbonne was the easiest one to enjoy. It took no effort whatsoever, and it's nearby. It was right when you got off the train station, you were already on your way. It's the spot. It's flat, and to go to that indoor food market, worth the short train ride. It doesn't take up a lot of energy to visit Narbonne, and it doesn't mess with your funds and your budget. It was just pleasant. It was nice.
High quality, though.
High quality. I'd go out
French
for dinner, drinks. I'd head over there just to do that. It was a perfect example of what a relaxed daily life in France probably looks like in other towns as well. Perpignan is the one that surprised us the most, though. It didn't give us all of that. It didn't give us the clean image right out of the station like Narbonne did. It had, a little bit more roughness about it. It was a little gritty.
On the outsides, but once you got into the old town area, that beautiful pink marble is beautiful. Cobblestones are gorgeous. The walkway around the riverside is completely pleasant and beautiful.
It just felt genuine. Felt a little more genuine. They're not like trying to reel you in. They're like, hey, you want to hang. If you don't. And that's the vibe. And it was a good vibe. And money went a lot farther there than what we paid for dinner, for sure. And being in a border country, that just motivates me all the more to see more, to go closer towards the border of Spain and see what it's like there. Go into Spain and see if they carry a little bit of the French culture. So yeah, there is a lot left in Perpignan for us to go back to. But if we had to pick just one to recommend as a first stop, it would be Perpignan. We choose it because it gave us the strongest sense of discovery. It left us wanting more. It left us wanting to find out what else they were hiding and that we could find. It was a real world type culture atmosphere, and it just wasn't staged. It was real. It was just there for you to enjoy. So everybody's looking for something different. Every traveler, every slow traveler, every retiree, expat, everybody's looking for something different. Whether you want to live or visit somewhere that has famous landmarks, or if you're looking for those vibrant wild cards that you have to investigate more to see what's underneath, or if you're looking for that low stress stop. This little train loop that we took, it proves that you can find it all right here in this little corner of France. And guess what? Without ever needing a car.
Let's look at the actual math for this entire loop for 2 people.
Total trains across all the legs came to $156.03. Our hotels only cost us $11.20 out of pocket, but that's because we used 20,784 chase points that we were trying to use on purpose because we were getting them at 1.5 instead of 1 times points, and that was going to end soon.
Ta-da!
So comparable direct cash value, though, if we had paid out of pocket, would have been $280.46. And what we spent on food and drinking water here and there added about $195.29. And if you add our luggage storage and the buses that we did take, that added $40.55. That brings the final out-of-pocket total to right around $403 for the 2 of us.
Not too bad. It's a very reasonable amount to pay for this multi-city trip.
Through this part of France.
So we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.